You're listening to the Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast, where when you can't be in the outdoors, we bring it to you. Welcome back to another episode of the Chasing Tails Outdoor Podcast. My name is Walt, his is Chase, and our simple goal here, we've got one underlying goal, and that's to bring you the outdoors when you can't be out there yourself. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast, you aren't in the woods, and if you are, probably should turn the podcast off and actually enjoy what you're doing out there, because that should be your focus. But we bring you stories, tips, tricks, interviews from all over the country in hopes that when you're stuck in the office doing the honey-do list, you have a good time. And this episode today is kind of a year in review episode where, you know, as we're recording this, the year is rapidly coming to a close. We have had 2020 has thrown us some serious challenges, as I'm sure it's thrown everybody some challenges. And we just want to take a moment and kind of, talk about how thankful we are for what we've done this year, the people who have supported us, and kind of, maybe touch on some of the brighter parts, because it's kind of easy to get caught in, what 2020 wasn't instead of what it was. So, dude, man, I kind of want to just open by saying thanks again for giving me another year of your time with the podcast. I know it isn't always convenient.
Yeah, man. Well, I enjoy doing the podcast with you. It's a great time. I love the guests that we have on. If anything, I use it as a learning tool myself to get better in the woods. And I think that's kind of why you started this podcast, was to get stories and help yourself as a hunter, because at the time you were kind of struggling on public land and stuff. And I think it has also helped you become a better hunter as well. So that's part of it. And then the whole community in itself is it's been opened up where I've got to meet a bunch of different people that tune into the show, that support us. And so far, everybody I've met's been great and are willing to share things. And just like our Patreon group that we've got established now. And we really got to give a shout out to those guys because they help support this show financially. And they're a great support system on our Marco Polo group that we have.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds cheesy, and I hope you guys know how serious I am, but we really could not do it without you guys, your support. I mean, it doesn't operating a podcast and doing what we're doing isn't cheap, and you guys commit to helping offset those costs so that we can grow, so that we can do what we're doing and bring you guys more content. And dude, the financial component of it is huge, but man, that Marco Polo group, I have grown so fond of the community over there, and everybody sharing tips and tricks. Yesterday, I got done with an all-day hunt, kind of felt a little bit, weary after that. I wouldn't say defeated, that's too strong a word, but I put in a lot of effort and only saw one deer. And just as I get in the truck and I'm just starting to allow myself feel sorry for myself, here comes Brock, and he's like, "Hey, I got one," and the whole group lights up, and everybody's excited. And not too long ago, Chris got his first deer, and a stud of a first deer, I might add, as well. That community is just this awesome little brainstorming of support and ideas, and if you have a question, it's asked, and then somebody from across the country chimes in with the answer. It's super cool, man.
Yeah, that's one of the things I enjoy about it, and a lot of it's like the motivation that you get when you see other people out having success or even helping them through their failures. I've also enjoyed that and kind of maybe given examples where I've failed as well, just to be like, hey, man, this happens to everybody. So
right.
Don't get too down on yourself. And I think we've had that in the group, and then the next thing you know, the person's going out and killing a deer. And
that's right.
And it's fun just to get to share those things with people that have invested in us.
Oh, yeah. And I just think it's really cool because everybody has had a chance to see me grow. You mentioned one of the reasons why I started this podcast, and it was because I needed help. First off, I like talking hunting, and I talk more than anybody you probably know. But on top of that, I wanted answers to my questions, and I thought, hey, if I've got these questions, someone else does. And you're right, man. I have grown a lot as as a hunter from it, and it is really cool kind of data mining those patrons, because people chime in with little tidbits and little sayings that you may not consider before, and the next thing you know, your mindset has shifted. I think back to Craig Kroom when he was at the Teaching Train, and he's talking about pockets of deer, and it was almost like there was an epiphany, because all of the different data points that I had kind of came together, and it was like, yeah, that's exactly what I've been trying to communicate, is that, the hunting here is difficult because you got a vast expanse of area that doesn't have deer, and then a concentrated pocket that everybody's trying to get after. And it's awesome, man. I can't thank them enough for doing what they're doing, for consistently contributing. It's amazing. And on that note, we've got one person we need to thank. We do this for every new patron that we get. Kevin Kelso, thank you for chiming in. He is just west of me here in town. He's just west of me on the Panhandle of Florida, and he's been chiming in with a lot of questions. And whenever we have that new member that comes in, they're always bringing some neat questions in, some neat perspectives, and it's awesome. I think we've got a diehard waterfowler. We've got an Oklahoma native that just gets after it in some really cold conditions, and he learned how to get permission this year, and everybody brainstormed how to get him permission. It's just, I'm probably talking too long again, but I love that group, and I adore everybody who supports the show.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. Appreciate the support, and like I said, the investment that they've put into us is probably the most important thing. Obviously, they like what we're doing. And one of the cool things that we get from our patrons is instant feedback, like on episodes or our YouTube videos or whatever we're doing. So we love the instant feedback, and any feedback that any of our listeners have on how we can make the podcast better and how we can grow within the podcast and our YouTube channel.
That's right. Yeah. And they have driven a lot of love to YouTube, and that's something we tried to invest heavily in this year. And self-filming didn't really, it didn't pay the dividends we had hoped this year, but that's part of it. I mean, it's a learning curve. We're self-filmers. I think everybody knows that sometimes things don't go right, but man, this year has thrown us through everybody. It's not just us. I mean, obviously we start off this year, going into turkey season with a COVID shutdown, and but that created opportunities that allowed me to get my honey-do list done here at home and spend more time in the woods, more time than I've ever spent in any one season. And I think we should kind of maybe go through the year and just kind of look at some of the awesome things that happened, because I shot my first 2 turkeys. I tagged out for the first time ever in anything. I have never, ever in my life tagged out. And, I'm sitting at home reading books. I read the 10th Legion, and turkey season comes, and my next door neighbor happens to invest in me real heavily and helps me get on birds. And I shot 2 really nice toms.
Yeah, you did. It was kind of cool getting to see you out every day pretty much of the season. You went out a lot.
Yeah.
I know at one point you're like, oh yeah, I've been out 18, 19 times, and I don't even think you've gone out 18, 19 times during a deer season, much less a turkey season. So
yeah.
It was cool getting to see that, and we had the Marco Polo going, I think, at that point, and getting to see some of that, and just you being able to kind of like broaden your horizons in hunting, because you had never really invested into turkey hunting that much, but this
Right.
year you went all in on turkey, and it paid dividends for you during the season, because you were able to bag 2 really good public land turkeys.
Yeah, and I darn near got it on film. On top of that, I almost got one of them on film. I kept a journal as well from this spring, and it was 31 hunts. I got 31 hunts in a 5-week season, and not all of those are morning hunts. Some of them are, evening hunts after work, which is another added benefit. But the cool thing there was I felt like you said, I normally don't hunt that often. If you really broke it down, it's a 5-week season. I tend to hunt Saturdays, maybe Sundays if I'm lucky. And so I got, 5 seasons worth of hunting in basically right there.
Right.
And it was cool because the learning curve was shortened so drastically because of that immersion. that by the time I killed that second bird, now I know there's going to be a turkey hunter somewhere who's going to laugh when I say this, but by the time I killed that second bird at the very tail end of the season, I felt like I went in that morning and I told everybody, I'm going in this spot. He's going to fly down here at this time. They're roosted over this water, and I'm going to kill him. And I felt like I had called my shots, and it was really cool for the first time as an outdoorsman to feel that sense of confidence that you have that deep understanding of the animal you're going after. You've invested time in the area, and what a blessing to have 5 to 6 seasons worth of learning occur in such a brief period of time. I mean, blessed beyond all belief.
Yeah. That's what I tell people all the time is a lot of it's just time in the woods, investing the time, and then you'll get good returns on that investment at some point. And you kept going, and you got a bird pretty early, and then stuck at it. And like you said, you started learning the woods better, what the turkeys were doing, and boom, you're able to tag out for the first time ever. So that was awesome to see. I was glad to be a part of it. My turkey season was a struggle bus, kind of like my deer season was. It wasn't that I was necessarily struggling to get on birds. It was just when I was getting on birds, I've even had the same thing during this hunting season. Is just on the wrong side of the fence, and sometimes your seasons, which I've learned, are going to kind of go that way.
Sure.
But you're just going to have to keep. You just keep going because at any point it could change, and that's kind of what my whole year has kind of been, is just basically determination and knowing that you're doing the right things, and eventually it's going to pay off. So I got one. I think I got my one turkey kind of like right at the tail end of the season this year, and usually I'm tagged out pretty early on turkeys in Florida, and it just didn't work that way this season. But maybe it reminded me, and it kind of reminded me that, hey, you didn't necessarily put in some of like the preseason scouting that you normally would. I kind of went into the season a little more relaxed and figuring that, hey, I'll be able to go out and get it done. And I think that by not investing some time in with some preseason scouting and things like that, it kind of put me back a little bit. And but it's also good to just grind every now and then. You know what I mean? If you just go out and kill 2 birds early every time, you don't necessarily appreciate it as much. And I think that you can get a better appreciation for it sometimes when you have to put in the hard work and struggle. And I think that's good, a good thing for hunters from time to time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also a testament to you as an ethical hunter as well, because you had several opportunities. You could have shot a bird directly on the other side of a property line that, that's a man-made constructed barrier, right? The bird doesn't, know anything about. And
right. Yeah. The animal knows nothing about it. I mean, my very first turkey hunt, which was an afternoon hunt, I actually went to this fence line to glass. I was just going to glass, maybe try to roost some birds for in the morning. And there's brush and trees and stuff all in the way, and there's this one little opening, and I stick my head out, and there's a group of 5 toms with hens like 25 yards from me. You know what I mean? And I sit there and watch them. I mean, I tried to call them over to my side of the fence, but they weren't really having it. And so I just had to watch them go, and I think part of my problem was I just kept playing with those birds quite a bit during the season. I would get over in that area just hoping like, okay, maybe I'll get to call one of these birds will finally commit to coming over the fence. And I think there was at least 4 or 5 different instances where they came right to the fence. Like literally I had them right at the fence, and they would just kind of look in my direction and just never would commit. And I've never been one of the person to be like, oh, well, nobody's watching. Nobody's going to know if I shoot this bird on the other side of the fence, except me. And I don't want to have to think about that for the rest of my days anyways, and besides it being illegal and everything else. And I've just kind of always stuck to that. And I'll tell some certain people, and they're like, why didn't you shoot that bird? Why didn't you shoot that bird? I'm like, well, it's not my bird to shoot. It's not my property.
Right.
And and I think and then at the end of the day, they understand that. I mean, and it's not them that's on the line. You know what I mean?
Right.
when they shoot that bird. So, of course, it's easy for them to say, oh, you should have shot it, and just say you shot it on this side of the fence. Well, no. That's not how I operate. And anyways, and we're in we have a platform, so we're under the microscope whether we like to think it or not. So just because we have all these people that we think support us and everything else, there's always going to be some people on that other side of the fence that are looking for you to do something wrong, so they can go, "Oh, I told you so," or "I knew it," or something like that. So that's kind of always going to be there. So I still that's just the way I am. I'm trying to be as ethical as I possibly can. So.
Well, and you're not doing it for food.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if you were, it's still illegal, but it's a different situation. If you were, homeless and trying to provide for yourself, or jobless rather, it would be a different situation. But you're not, and
right.
So to a certain degree, those rules matter even more so because, I think Aldo Leopold was the person who said ethical behavior is doing the right thing when no one else is watching. It doesn't matter that much, right? Like pride doesn't enter the equation. You've got more opportunities. I mean, if it's not a chase for a lack of barriers, then it's just killing. And you maintain that tenet even going into deer season when you had your one of your target bucks sitting within video camera distance. What was it, 15 yards to your left?
Yeah, between 10 and 15 yards.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there staring at you. And I mean, I think if people were honest, I think there's probably a fair amount of people that would have thought, or maybe attempted to drop him in his tracks and drag him across that line pretty quick. It hurt my heart to see the video.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's the same thing with that deer. I mean, you have people you have some people like, oh man, yeah, I'm proud of you for not doing that. That's that. Yeah. And then you have some that are like, oh man, you should have shot that thing and said you shot it on that side of the fence and everything. And I'm like, well, I was like, I just don't want to have to deal with that. I mean, this is a deer that been chasing for 3 years, and if I kill him, and I mean, he's a deer that I want to mount. I mean, a deer that I would mount and put on my wall. I don't want to have to look at that deer for the rest of my life knowing that I shot it on the other side of the fence. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
The way I looked at it, I mean, I saw him. I didn't even come close to grabbing for my gun or anything. I'm like, well, he's on this other side of this fence. And all I said to myself was like, hey, he won today. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, the deer are going to win most of the time. So you just have to look at it like that. Like, hey, he won today. I still got plenty of opportunities to get back out here and then to where I have a chance of winning. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what makes the chase. So, I mean, if we flash forward to deer season, actually, you know what? Come to think of it, in both seasons, I drew blood first, which is anybody who's followed the podcast, that tells you just how weird 2020 is. It'll never happen again. But both deer and turkey season, I drew blood first. But man, you had a heck of an up and down year, unlike anybody I know, where if it could go wrong, it probably did on a lot of really nice big deer. But you overcame all of that for your current personal best.
Yeah, it was a interesting season to say the least. Like I mentioned before, there were a lot of firsts for me during a season of things that could go wrong that haven't gone wrong for me in the past. I mean, the first day I get an e-bike, take it out, go out to the woods, and I shot a deer. Hit him high, knew I'd hit him high, pretty much knew it was a non-lethal shot from the get-go. Still put in the effort to try to find it. I mean, I had several people come out and help me look for the deer, and pretty much came to the conclusion it was one of those high shoulder hits. That's a non-lethal hit. And get home, check my bow. I was like, well, let me check my bow. And I never even thought about looking at the rest until after I shot my bow in the backyard and the arrow goes sailing over the buck target that was out there, and look at the rest. It's canted like 45 degrees or something.
Didn't your arrow explode? Like you hit something? And
I hit like the fence behind it, and the arrow just explodes. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? And I look down at my thing, and like my rest isn't flat or perpendicular with the riser there. And I'm like, something's wrong here. And I look at it, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I attribute it to getting off of the e-bike because I forgot to bring like a harness to carry my bow in. So I'm holding my bow in my left hand and trying to hold the handlebars and everything else. And I remember trying to get off the bike at one point, and I kind of tugged on the bow. Like I was like, oh, I went to pull it off, and then I was like, what was that? And then it kind of broke free, and never once did I go, oh, maybe I should check my bow while I'm in the stand. Which I learned something. That was something I learned this year, is that, hey, maybe sometimes I kind of take for granted of just going, everything's on. You know what I mean? And there's ways you can check your stuff. I mean, a lot of people mark their stuff on their bow with like a white marker or something to go, okay, everything's lined up. I should be good to go. And that kind of this was a really, and the other thing, this was a really good public land buck for Florida. And I mean, that was like even more insult to injury, is it was a really, really good buck. Probably not as good as the one I shot last year, but still a really good buck. And it kind of went through that, and then never really, I mean, I had some opportunities at shooting some deer with my bow after that, but and before that, but just none of them were something that I wanted to shoot. And I had that one big buck that we put on the YouTube of being within 10 yards of me for 15 minutes and never could get a shot on him. So that was interesting. I never really had a deer that close to me before, that long, and not being able to get a shot on the deer.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, because normally if they're coming through or they're kind of feeding it, it's not, I mean, he just sat there and fed and kind of worked a scrape and all kinds of stuff right there in front of me. And, I mean, I had the wind in my advantage. I think that was pretty much the thing that saved me the most, is that the wind was my advantage. Wasn't able to get a shot off on him. Went through bow season, start muzzleloader season. I had switched from, I used to use the pellets, to where I was like, okay, I'm gonna switch to the loose powder, the Blackhorn 209, and get a buck. Have my camera out. I have everything going for me, and this buck comes out of the woods, walks out in front of me. I stop him, grunt at him. He stops, perfect. Pull the trigger on the muzzleloader and just get a loud pap and some little bit of smoke from the primer cap. And of course the buck like looks at me and like, what was that? And I'd already grunted at him too, so he was already on alert from that. And he just decides, okay, I'm going to turn, which I wouldn't have been able to shoot him anyways, even if I got another primer. Once I figured there was something happened with the powder where it wasn't in the, it was a weird deal. I don't know how, even like physics or scientifically, that the powder was not on the breech plug. But I went home, tried to shoot it like 3 different times with different primers, wouldn't go off, took the breech plug out, and then there's no powder on the breech plug, and then I kind of turned the gun over, and then all the powder comes running out of the gun, and I'm like, okay, I really don't know how that happened. But
I have no idea.
So I've already, like I said, hit a deer, non-lethal shot on a deer, pulled the trigger with my muzzleloader, and nothing happens. First time that it ever happened to me. Like, I'd always use pellet, and I'd always heard of some people having malfunctions with their muzzleloaders. And I was like, man, I've never had a malfunction with my muzzleloader. And I've shot a bunch of deer with my muzzleloader just because that's generally the best time to be in the woods where I'm at. And I was like, well, I guess never is not a word that you need to have in your dictionary when it comes to hunting. Because if you hunt long enough, something eventually is going to happen to you. So that happened, and a few other mishaps here and there. And then the whole off season, I'm excited because I'm going to Iowa. And I'm thinking, you're going to Iowa, you have these dreams, I'm going to kill this Boone and Crockett buck with my bow in Iowa. And then just get kind of thrown a bunch of curveballs while I'm out in, like, probably the warmest weather they've had in the last, 25 years or something, or who knows how long in Iowa. The guy there's like, the weather's never been like this the first week of November. Highs in the, like, mid to high 70s every day. And some of the way, like the corn still being up, just all kinds of things that could have kind of gone against you in a hunt. And don't come home with anything from Iowa. And I still had some of the bucks, and a couple of the bucks on my private places had still made it. And So I was like, well, I guess that's going to be my goal the rest of the season, is to try to get on one of these deer. And I just kept plugging along. So just kept plugging along, kept getting intel, and was finally able to make it happen. And then after killing that deer, I've kind of been kind of like on cruise control since then, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, he was my personal best deer, which is awesome. And currently I don't have anything on camera or anything like that bigger than him. I have that one deer that I was on the other side of the fence that we talked about, that I've kind of been after. But I mean, he's kind of not a very patternable deer. But yeah, it was great to get him. And like I said, I kind of been on cruise control since then. Like, maybe I'll go today, maybe I won't. I want to sleep in today. So I haven't been as motivated to get out after all that happened, but I still have been out several times since then. But yeah, it was a kind of a struggle bus this year for me altogether, except for one of the things that I think we need to mention is the Yakking for Bass Challenge that we had this year as well. I mean, that's one of the things that we like really look forward to every year. And I still was able to become first of the creators in the Yakking for Bass Challenge. So if one thing went right for me this year, it was the Yakking for Bass
That's right.
challenge. I didn't really struggle in that. But that's always a good time, and everybody that gets involved and helps give back to whatever charity or whatever we're trying to give to that year. And that's also something that we really appreciate, is when people support us and take part in something that we're trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, we raised an unprecedented amount of money this year. I think we doubled. Memory serves me, I think we doubled what we raised the previous year, and it just blows my mind that our small platform can raise that kind of money, because considering we really aren't much of a fishing platform, it's a lot of people recognizing the good that we're doing and choosing to support us. I know people were borrowing kayaks and borrowing canoes, and I think we're probably going to do that again this year, and the planning for that will probably start real soon. Probably is going to have to, as fast as this year has gone by. But yeah, no, dude, that was an absolute blast. And I tell you what, man, the best part about that is I crave competition in my life, and there's just enough in there, but among the creators who contribute, the smack talking that occurs, and last ditch sandbagging that will have to be reviewed for the upcoming year. But it's so much fun. I adore that Yakking for Bass Challenge.
Yeah, it's fun, and it kind of helps pass the time, because it's kind of that in-between time between turkey season and when you need to start getting prepped for deer season.
Right.
And I think it's a good filler for that time, and it goes to a good cause. And we get to interact with a lot more people during that time. And heck, we got to meet up with quite a few people to go fishing. So that was fun as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, we got to meet up. You and I got to spend an evening fishing out there. And it wasn't the Whopper Plopper. What lure was it that had you dang near cussing?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to have to think about that. It's
a little frog with like a paddle tail on the end of it.
Yeah, Springer. It was the Sprinker. Sprinker.
That's what it was.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
If you want to see someone who is fiercely competitive himself lose his mind when he loses multiple solid fish, Chase about dang near chucked every Sprinker frog he had into the lake.
Yeah, I still haven't caught a fish on that frog. I don't know if it's the hooks or I'm doing something wrong or what it is.
I don't know.
But I know one thing: it definitely will cause fish to strike at your bait. They may not take it, but you will definitely get. I mean, it just the thing with that bait, and it just, like you mentioned that night, it just sounds juicy on the water. I mean, it sounds like a fish is. And sure enough, I mean, I had quite a few blow-ups that night, and not much to show for it. And then I finally switched over to the ribbit frog and was able to catch a fish that night.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could ever figure that thing out, look out.
That was interesting. We're gonna figure that out. I'm gonna probably this spring start playing with it, because I read where people are like, I bend the hooks out a little bit further, and because it kind of comes through the pads on top, everything real nice, and so we're gonna tinker with it, because that is hands down my favorite way to catch frogs is on that topwater. I don't know anybody who doesn't like catching fish on topwater.
Oh, yeah. And I had quite a few of my fish were, like I said, they were on the Whopper Plopper. Caught quite a few fish on the Whopper Plopper when I went down to
Oh yeah,
definitely when I went down to Fellsmere with Adam Glass and Nick Chandler. That's how we got to meet up with those guys, and they've been real good
yep.
friends of the podcast ever since.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, Nick was just up here chasing whitetails, and we pulled some cameras together, and I did my best to put them on deer. Unfortunately, none of my trail cameras had anything worth pursuing, but he had a good time doing it. But that kind of goes back to the community, man. Like, this podcast has opened up doors. You know, it satisfies our curiosity. It connects us with people who have a similar passion. And let's face it, it's hard sometimes to find somebody who's ate up and willing to wade in a swamp when it's 80, 90 degrees, or, you know, deal with really cold weather. And, Florida boys aren't, there's not a big, very thick layer of fat on us. So, a cold front comes through, a lot of people are going to sit in. And, Nick and Adam are dudes who are ate up with it. They get after it. And Andy Thompson, another dude who, in the community that we've made friends with, who's invested in us, and vice versa. And it's awesome, man. I love this podcast. I really do. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made.
Yeah. It's a great community, and the hard part is you get so many invites and things to do with people, you just don't have time to do it all.
It's true.
Some of these hunts, you're like, hey, where are you going to go hunt next year? And then you have like all the kind of these options that you could do, and you're kind of like, I don't even know at this point. Like, I'm kind of stuck, like trying to figure out, all right, well, what can I get in a season and still be able to do all of my normal stuff that I'm already doing right now. And I'm looking forward to starting this next year, mainly because I'll at the end of spring, I'll finally be done with my degree that I've been working on for like the last 3 years, trying to finish up. So I'll officially be a Gator grad, which probably you're not happy about, but
no.
I'll finally be a Gator graduate. With my degree, and I'll be able to focus more on stuff for the podcast, YouTube, things like that. So I'm really looking forward to finishing that up. This
I know, absolutely. I mean, as everybody knows, this is not our full-time job.
Yeah.
And I look forward to, and I think in the coming years, like you said, when your schoolwork's done and my flexibility changes, and as the podcast grows and our ability to do things start to change, I look forward to you and I being able to do more hunts together. We got one coming up. We're going to be chasing the late January rut here in Florida together for several days. I look forward to, some of those videos that we'll be able to do during turkey season where we're both together, because the dynamic whenever you have a cameraman and a person is always so much better, and that community shows through in the video. And, we're making steps towards going in that direction, both you getting done with your school and people tuning into the channel and joining Patreon and driving people to YouTube. I mean, we're nipping at the heels at being able to create some really nice content for you guys. And this year kind of gave us a foundation for that. We figured out setups, dude. You got into self-filming. It kind of, didn't play out the way you wanted it to, but you learned a lot, I think. You figured your setup out and, got familiar with it. You had to get a different pack. And I mean, there's a lot that goes into this thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I probably haven't invested as much like in the later season, mainly because I know rifle's super hard and some of this, especially in Florida. And I kind of regret not having my camera. Well, I think my battery or something was weird with my camera the day that I actually shot that big buck, of course. And of course he's at 10 yards or whatever he was when I shot him. So and then even on the shot with the buck on public, I'm like, okay, it was super foggy that morning, crazy foggy. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to wait to take my camera out. Cause I figured I was like, it's just going to fog up. The rangefinders, everything were messing up, that morning as well. And, of course, about the time I'm ready to get my camera out, that's when the buck comes out. And, so yeah, it was a good, a learning curve this year. Hopefully, next year, I'll have my setup more dialed in. And hopefully I can get some good footage and content next year for the YouTube channel. I look forward to doing that. And like I said, I look forward to being able to go and hunt together some and maybe filming for each other. Because, I mean, especially during turkey season, self-filming for turkeys is probably, I don't know how much harder than it is killing deer. I'm sure it's 1,000 times harder.
It's agonizing.
Than trying to film a deer. So I look forward to all those things coming up in 2021. And we talked about my deer season, but we didn't. We kind of went back to the yakking for bass thing. But you've had a great season.
You know, I'm not used to having good seasons, so I totally forgot. I totally forgot that there was something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. You've had your best season since you've been in Florida, for sure. I don't know about prior to Florida, but you've definitely had your best Florida season for the most part, I would say. You had a little time there where you hunted some private land when you first got here, but definitely for public, and you kind of expanded your range this year. So why don't you talk about that some?
Yeah, you know, I think I looked back several times now, and I've thought, you know, is this my best season? And I think it kind of it's up there. I mean, I'm almost willing to say entirely that this is my best season, just because even if I've had better seasons in the past I think I've had a couple seasons where I've shot 5 or 6 deer, but I got my personal best gun, back in November. I got drawn for a lottery hunt and, put in a lot of scouting the year before, implemented trail cameras, which was, something that Jake Bush talked about on the podcast, and several guests, Mr. Stovall talked about how he utilizes trail cameras to find good areas. I invested in that in the off season, bought I don't know, dude, I think I had to have bought 7 trail cameras this year. And to be able to implement that, identify an area, get drawn for that hunt. I had a beautiful Florida 8-point come in at 50 yards and free-handed the shot, dropped him in his tracks, and didn't get that on camera because things go wrong. But it was an awesome year, and I started off during bow season. I started hunting Georgia, which I keep making the connections. We had John Eberhart come on, I think in May-ish.
Yep.
And he's talking about how, he doesn't even hunt close to his house, that he's just completely eliminated areas nearby, and he sometimes has to drive, I think, memory serves, didn't he say an hour and a half? He drives an hour and a half to his closest spot?
Yeah. I remember him talking some of his good spots were a couple hours away.
Right, and so you and I are sitting here in the off season, and my elk hunt got canceled, so I had, that pot of money to do something with it, and we kind of, put our heads together, and I said, dude, Georgia's right across the border. Let's go see what that public land looks like. And I went up there and did a lot of scouting. Andy Thompson helped me out. Bo Lease helped me out and pointed me in the right direction. And dropped the $400 this year for an out-of-state license. And good Lord, opening weekend, shoot a spike. Didn't recover it because the debacle there. It's in a past episode, but shot a spike, got it on trail camera. It lived to tell the story, but had an awesome hunt in mid-December where almost got a buck up there as well. And I mean, it's just this season. Went to Southeast Georgia to a WMA I've never set foot on before, and in a matter of 3 days, kill a doe and could have killed countless hogs as well. I mean, it's just one of those deer seasons where it felt like through people investing in me, through my curiosity of having guests on the podcast and a little bit of luck mixed in, I feel like at least from a public land standpoint, but I think as a hunter as a whole, I genuinely feel like I kind of turned a corner in what I was able to do. I was able to put all these pieces together by talking to all these awesome people. I've been able to benefit from that, both in the turkey woods and the deer woods. And man, to have 4 encounters with deer this year, two really good bucks. I mean, just the other day, I was 30 minutes on the trail camera. This is such a new story. No one's even heard this one, but I go up to Southwest Georgia on a gun hunt, and as I'm walking to a ridge, there's a bedding area at the end of this finger. I'm walking up, and the wind is blowing right down into that bedding area, which is where I thought all the does and the deer would be, and turns out they were. And I thought, okay, back off, observe from afar, wait for the wind to shift when the sun comes up, and then get up there. Again, knowledge that I've learned through talking to people, listening to podcasts, and made the right call, because at 7:01, here comes a really nice, and Chase, you can correct me if I'm exaggerating, but he's a wall hanger of a deer for me. at least an 8-point, comes right by the camera at 7:01 as I'm waiting for the wind to shift. At 7:15 is when I looked down and saw the the wind started to shift, the sun was coming up. I make my way up the final approach and triggered the camera at 7:31. So I mean, I was like right nipping on the heels. I'm starting to feel like I'm putting that game plan together where I can kind of start to anticipate where the deer are coming from. Kind of dangerously similar to turkey season, where towards the end I started feeling like I was starting to figure them out on that property. And to have that many encounters, to have 2 deer in the freezer, still some turkey in the freezer, and the potential to, still got a month, let's say, 5 weeks of the best part of my season ahead of me, I could not be happier with the way that this year turned out.
Yeah. It's been a great season for you. It's been great being able to kind of help you out some and be there and being able to encourage you, and then all of your hard work paying off. I mean, that's been probably the best part, is you've actually put in hard work this off season and during the season. And I've even had several people kind of mention to me that it's like, hey man, it looks like Walter's really putting in the work this year. Like he's getting after it. And I'm like, yeah, he is. I'm like, I think he's kind of figured that out some, is about how much hard work you actually have to put in to get on deer, especially public land deer in Florida, and even moving on to a different area of Georgia and things like that. I mean, you got a lot of hard work to put in to be able to get on deer and try to figure things out. And I think you're starting to see the fruits of your labor.
It has been a wonderful year, and it has fed a desire for me to work harder. I'm probably going to take February and focus on finding some turkeys, but dude, I mean, come the end of turkey season or during turkey season while I'm hunting, if you think I'm not going to be dropping cameras and looking for fresh sign, I mean, this year I'm going to work even harder. I see the efforts.
Oh yeah, yep. Hard work pays off. I mean, you hear that from, doesn't matter what it is, hunting, college football, anything, business, anything. Hard work pays off. So I think that can be applied to pretty much anything you do and that you want to be successful in, is to put in that sweat equity.
That's right.
And I think we've even seen that through some of our, like even the patrons and things like that. Just the amount of hard work that they've been putting in this year. And some of them haven't been successful yet, but I feel like they're just on the verge of being successful, and then others have. So it's been real good to see.
Yep. And there have been several places I put in a lot of effort and not been successful. I think some of the areas that I scouted the most this year, I have more or less not hunted, just because I didn't get the return on it that I thought. But the return isn't always killing a deer. Sometimes that return is simply eliminating a piece and saying, this doesn't suit what I'm looking for, and I'm moving on. And I think that can be equally as valuable, eliminating ground. Dan Infalt talks all the time about how his style of hunting, when he's applying his style of hunting, there might be 1 or 2 places where on an entire piece of public that he'll hunt, and the rest of it just isn't suitable to his style of hunting. So he moves on, and I've kind of had to let go of some areas. So, but yeah, deer season in summary has been hands down my best deer season. And honestly, I feel like it's really set me up for really being excited about next year, because not just the success, but the places I've gone to and the additional sign that I've seen, or the entire lack of hunting pressure on some of these parcels has been unreal. And so I'm really looking forward to it. And there's a chance that in January, you guys are going to hear a success story from, the rest of the season, because we're not done yet.
Yeah. We still have even where I'm at, we still have a month left of season, even down here. I think it ends January 24th. So still got 1 deer that I'm definitely after. And then who knows, maybe a surprise buck in there as well. And then hopefully coming up and hunting with you as well. So we still got plenty of deer season left. So where most of the country is going to be done come basically January 1st, we'll still be getting after it.
Absolutely, man. Well, I think maybe we could end this year in review now. I think we've kind of hit everything that we've wanted to do. Hopefully we've got some success stories coming your way from the panhandle of Florida, maybe some southwest Georgia hunting as well. And cold fronts are coming. It's going to be 23 degrees this weekend where I'm going, which is, for a Florida boy, abysmally cold. I can't wait, though. It gets me really excited. So,
oh, yeah.
But guys, if you enjoy this podcast, I'm so happy to hear that. I really am. Do us a favor. Tell somebody about it. Help us grow through word of mouth. That's how we grow, is people find us by you guys sharing it. If you enjoyed this podcast, tell somebody about it. And if you got suggestions, questions, shoot us a message. If there are topics you want to be heard next year, let us know. I'm not going to give away any details right now, but I can tell you we've got some really amazing things planned for 2020. Chase and I probably will record a podcast about that during our January hunt and tell you about everything that we've got coming. But Chase, I think it's safe to say right now the Q1 giveaway for next year is really going to be it's going to hit home with some people.
Yeah, it is. Q1, and we're fixing to do Q4 giveaway.
That's right.
We haven't done that yet, and I think that it's some great pieces. I mean, you get some Scree gear, base layers, you get the Alps pack, and then some goodies thrown in the pack to go along
That's
with
right.
it. And
Titan straps.
Yep, the Titan straps. You featured those on a video. Those are some really cool straps and versatile straps that you can use for a lot of things that you'll do in the woods. And the first quarter will be. I think it's going to be an awesome giveaway. So I'm looking forward to announcing that in the new year.
That's right. Well, guys, let's leave it at that. We will see you on the flip side. This will be the last episode for 2020 for us, but we will see you on the other side in starting 2021, and I cannot wait to see what that year has in store for us. So until next time, no matter what you do, get outside and enjoy the great outdoors.